Hello and welcome to another week of In Detail with myself, Aaron Kernan, and Michael Meehan. Michael, how are you enjoying the summer holidays from the teaching mode?
We're good down here, Aaron. Yeah, all is good. Haven't got golf clubs out here. I'm looking at them beside me. They usually come out once or twice in the year around this time, but the club of Am is coming up there in July, so we'll dust them down and play at least one game before that. But no, we're good. We're looking forward to a hectic weekend that's coming up on all fronts. Tailteann Cup and Sam Maguire. Yeah, so it's good. What about you? You were on duty for your for the Connacht team last week.
Yeah, we had a good win away at home, to Carlow, and it sets us up now for Saturday evening's game against Fermanagh in the quarter-final in Enniskillen. So unfortunately, that means that clashes pretty much with the Armagh and Galway game Saturday evening. So I don't think I'm going to make it to Breffni Park in time to see Armagh finish Galway's Sam Maguire campaign. With a bit of luck.
I don't know, would it be unethical to have the phone out on the sideline with GA Plus while your game is going on?
I'd say, boy, the way the time's going to fall, that'll be coming last 10-15 minutes against Fermanagh. I don't think I'll have too much time to be worrying about anything else other than what is going to be facing in front of me. But you're right, it is. It's a brilliant weekend. There's just across all fronts. There's so much movement that can happen in the Sam Maguire race in the last rounds, and then obviously Tailteann Cup knockout season over for teams. So huge amount riding on it. But to be fair, just getting the win against Carlow and then knowing that you're prepping and heading to training this week, it is. I find it very exciting and just brilliant to be part of groups this time of year. You know what it's like yourself. This was always the time where the weeks went faster. You couldn't wait to get to training quick enough to get out onto the field and working on different things. So this is where November, December, January, it all boils down to this time of year.
Absolutely. The niggle's always cleared up that little bit quicker this time of year as well. And you have full turnouts in training and it really is. It's all going to happen so fast now, for everyone. And
it is.
Big games across the board, Saturday, Sunday. So yeah, in fairness, we've been treated fairly well with some big games and big performances already. But now there's the element of knockout is very, very real, and there's teams are going to have to put their bodies on the line, and it's going to make for a nice little weekend of football.
Well, the start of the knockout last weekend was Tailteann Cup in the preliminary quarterfinals. You have a bit of an interest in what's going on in Offaly, and not only what they did in Division 3 this year in terms of getting promoted, but you have a keen interest in what happens in Offaly. So what did you make of their performance, or did anyone in particular stand out for you?
Yeah, I got to I watched it live at the time. My wife's brother-in-law was at the game, so I was a bit of texting over and back slagging with him, but he was keeping me up to speed with things that you might have missed. But I suppose first thing is, on the back of their promotion, they've got to play Kildare right in the next round. So that's third time this year, having beaten them, I think, in the last round of the league and the league final. So, that's maybe not ideal in terms of the draw. And what's also not ideal really is that, Lake Old to Laois pipped them for and that might have saved them the 3 weeks in a row that they're now going to have, back to back to back. But they're a lovely team, a lovely footballing team. I have to say, we'll see a little bit in a minute or two of what they do, but how they try and play. And I know you come across them in league. They look to the sixth starting team who all earned under 20 from 4 years ago. So there's a great bit of belief there, and there's a great group that have been managed quite well, I'd say, for a number of years now. And throw Mickey Hart into the mix, and that's going to bring another level. But I suppose someone who took it to a new level at the weekend for them, and the first thing we look at is Dylan Hyland and how he performed for them. I think he ended up at 112, and just returning from injury, he had a massive performance. All across the game, scored heavily, but he worked hard as well. So we might have a little look at a few little things at him. And to be fair to him, he was just applying the finished product to what Offaly did really well around the pitch. But this score comes very early on, and I suppose just if we were to be a little bit critical of New York here, is Offaly have that wind, right? And there's three lads just far too deep there sitting back. I suppose we're still feeling their way through the game, but after this kick, I'd say they made their mind up. Hang on, we need to push out in this, because outside the 45, he just strokes that over. So a beautiful score, in fairness. This one, just jumping into the second half, just watch. There's a lovely little bit of movement that we're going to see here. He's going to cut around the back, just losing his man. I remember years and years ago, Jaff Fallon telling me as a young lad in Galway, demonstrating this move to wheel away from a man. He's completely lost. He just gets that little bit of separation, and nice little angle of a run, in fairness, and it's going to be a good score. So just really smart play all the way through. So this here is just, I suppose, I think they were hit for maybe 1-6 in a row, and New York were back in it. And if that goes in from O'McGilligan, it's maybe back to a 6-point game. But Offaly, just with a little bit of composure, looking to move the ball fast, and you can see them coming out with the ball here, and it's just going to end up in the hands of Highland again. And two things he does. There's a lovely little bit of movement here to lose. He goes left and right just to lose his man here coming across the 45. And then the small little bit of left hand onto right hand, and just, that's a man who's on form, who can do very little wrong, in fairness. And I suppose he's not all show horse either. A bit of workhorse here. We can see him, working on that. But Aaron, now in here, he's jumping. Are we still saying as coaches, you got to stay on the ground and run with the man?
Yeah, 100% you do, because particularly now where you're trying to go man to man on people, once he's out, if that ball goes to eighth hand quickly and his opponent follows on, that's where your overlap happens. And it's so hard to get yourself into a good defensive shape, to get everybody that you're able to go man to man again. So for me, I probably would have took a step or two back to give yourself the opportunity maybe to potentially shape your body, that you can then show the New York 8 down the sideline, across the number 8, and then you can start to swarm across to them using the sideline as an extra defender.
Yeah, well, in any case, he takes himself a little bit out of the game, but the way the clip plays on, and we'll see, he gets a chance to make up for it, and he gets a turn on his man here. Just dogged work, and he gets across in a double up here with a lovely little dispossession, and moves the ball quickly on. And on another day with a little bit more composure here, Offaly have this in the back of the net, but they're just trying to maybe do things a little bit too fast, a little bit on the blind. But that's credit to Offaly with how they kind of went at it, and they had maybe 15 wides. They scored, what was it, 225. There was lots of turnovers on both sides, but they just looked to go and to play, and an entertaining team to watch.
Yeah, that was the one thing. Like, it was the very first league game that we played them with Sligo, poor conditions. I think it was the weekend of the storm. But I suppose you're surprised even by the skill level at that time of the year, how composed they were once they got an opportunity to get a run on you. I thought just their skill level was what really stood out most to me. And then whenever you see your marquee forward behaving in the manner that Highland has done there in terms of just chasing down stuff, obviously right. The first one where he jumped, but his body shape for the next one, his reading, that this guy's turning back and I'm going to get the double up and stripping up possession. If your top man's doing that, everything else is infectious. That flows through the whole team. So just even for your marquee forwards, or for, I see an awful lot in the moment where whoever these marquee forwards are who are in the front three, they'll run 5 yards and they'll think, I'm not supposed to go back, I'm out of this. Where he's took himself right out to the middle of the field. He's chased down a couple of lost causes in a game that realistically they probably had won. But that just shows that he has the right attitude whenever they don't have possession. He's not just standing in there and trying to save the energy for the ball whenever it comes to him. So it's no surprise whenever you see him playing and behaving in that manner that they've had the season that they've had so far. But it does, even though they've beaten them twice, it cranks up a level for them now this weekend against Kildare, and that'll be a really good game to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the next few little bits we look at, we might just see things that Kildare we know what we might expect them to do and how Offaly need to prepare for that. But I suppose just again a little bit more on what Offaly try and do, and in the next clip here we just see like a ferociousness to mark man on man. And coming into this game, I saw Jack Robinson give Galway the runaround in New York. He kicked 5 or 6 points, from play. Here he goes down the line. Lee Pearson does exactly what you want to do. He's near hand tackling. He gets him turned. And then the support comes in from the two lads here. Killian Burke is one of them, and they just maybe a little bit unfortunate there that there isn't a free in, but it was, I liked how they looked to tackle and just to do the right thing. And again here, another example, and it could well be Lee Pearson again, and he's just 100 committed here to win this ball before his man. He overshoots the runway and the ball gets inside him, which typically can spell danger, right? But his teammates are there to back him up and to close off, and it amounts to nothing. So, just that willingness to kind of know that they can commit to going for the ball at all costs. And now when it goes wrong, if the cover isn't there, it can be a goal chance, but it's refreshing to see. And I think back to the lads that you would have marched like that, and they're a nightmare, because if they're getting out in front of you, every forward has to win his own ball out in front. And then it's how Offaly move it down the field here, and they're looking to move the ball around and play it around. Okay, but I suppose what we'll just see here in a minute or so, Aaron, is what they need to do, maybe just with Kildare in mind, is how they might want to just manage it and pick their battles a little bit more, because in fairness, it's going to be that man Hyland again, right, who'll end up on the ball here in another few seconds. But I suppose without maybe a call from a teammate, or without just maybe a little bit of a heads up, we've loads of people back here. What you have two extra New York defenders, one outside the 14 and one just on the top of the smaller D. So they have bodies back. And Hyland just, he's one-on-one with his man. He takes him on, but very quickly, in fairness to New York, they get in there and there's a man come around the back to dispossess. And I'm just thinking Kildare are definitely bigger, more physical than Offaly. And, in situations like that, they need to even mind the ball more and recycle from side to side.
Particularly with Clare, very good at they clog up that centre. But what they do is, once they get that turnover, is really direct with how they play the ball up the other end of the field. New York go through the hands there. You can be sure Kildare will, quite similar to what we see here. They look to go long, they look to go direct. The Loud game that we did with GA Plus earlier in the year, particularly in that first half, into those same goals in Tullamore, the amount of times where they get the ball to that left half forward position and just turn that long diagonal ball, that's so hard for a defender because you're always going backwards, but brilliant for a forward to collect because they're on the half turn. Now, in that case, obviously the New York forwards build it, but it's certainly something that they're going to see way more often next weekend, and particularly if they force a turnover, right, just like that Highland one. Certainly it was something that I seen Kildare, as you're studying them in the weeks leading up to our last game against them, but also in person. Just happens really, really quickly, gives your back three no time to defend, no time to get cover or protection there. But the management team that they have down there, I'm fairly sure that they'll be well schooled and well prepared. It is difficult to beat the same team 3 times in a season, but I'm sure they'll be full of confidence that they're well capable of doing it. Yeah, just one other aspect of the game, particularly a positive from New York, Bobby O'Regan's goal, someone that would be way above my pay grade in terms of what he did, maybe right up your street, Michael. Any thought process on what he's thinking whenever the ball comes into him here, or is this just sheer forward instinct?
This is instinct, yeah. There's no real reason, or no. I'm not going to make out that I can pretend to analyze this. It's just a crack and score from well outside the 21. Something that often needs to be careful of is the amount of possessions from kickouts that they didn't win. But what about that for a finish? Just turns, hitting it on the turn and just catches it with that nice little bit of the inside of the boot. The difficulty there is keeping the ball low enough that it doesn't go above the crossbar height. And he managed that really well, and he has great power on it. And to be fair, there's no saving that. So definitely the score of the game. The game was gone at this stage. So maybe there's a little bit of that in the decision making. You go say, I'll have a crack.
Yeah, there's nothing to lose, but it's just that to have the skill execution to do what he does. As soon as I seen the highlights of it on Sunday night, you're just thinking, wow, what a finish for him.
Right, so Aaron, maybe moving on from Offaly in New York, and I suppose you were watching one of the other big games of the weekend, but I'm thinking of a man who scored heavily, and Luke Loughlin, points and goals to beat the band all year so far, and I think he was a man you wanted to look at with regard to how the game shaped up over the weekend.
Yeah, 100%, Michael. Luke, to be fair, his form throughout the league and championship has been sort of jaw-dropping, racking up TJ Reid scores realistically. And that was a big game because Laois are a decent team. One that you're sort of keeping half an eye on that you're trying to avoid. And it was one that, yeah, as soon as our own game was dealt with, you're sort of having a look at it to see how did it go. And the way Luke's form has been, the first thing you do is Scorpio app and see how much has Luke Loughlin scored. So you have to see only 1-2 to his name, 1 2-point effort, and also a penalty. Very, very unusual. So it's whenever you're looking at the game in detail as well to try and see, well, what happened that he maybe didn't get on the ball as much, did Laois do really well in terms of defensively to completely blot him out of the game. So as we look over, we'll throw up a few clips here. So this shows really from the very, very start of the game that anytime he would get the ball, obviously something that they spoke about. You'll see him, he leads out through the arc here as he goes down the sideline. Parker runs number 5 for Laois. So instead of following his man outside the arc, you'll see him now, he drifts back towards the corner where he's ready to double up to help Trevor Moore if Luke Loughlin turns back out. So just early on in the game, clearly something that's identified. Now Martin McNally gives a free kick for another issue off the ball, but sort of that's them setting the tone of what exactly was going to happen. But here we have only a few minutes in, a long kick out, and we see Luke Loughlin picking up the ball in the sideline. But just look at how many Laois players make their way over to him. You have 4 players who are just converging on him on the sideline, trying to keep him shut in that he can't. Like, he's really good at burning you for pace along the end line and then skipping back out onto the left foot. But they're making sure straight away that they're clogging that off. There's the 4 Laois players, show them to the sideline, and the ball comes back. But this is where the issue is. We're 9 minutes into the game, and there's a huge amount of work into this. There's a huge amount of having to leave your man and be selfless and go across. And here again, we have Seamus Lacey. He just runs the whole way across the arc, doubles up, helps Trevor Moore, forces him back, and eventually here, the Laois players along the sideline, they force a turnover, they gain possession. But this is where things kick into gear for me, where I suppose as someone who you're trying to get into the coaching game at the moment, as I am, the new rules, studying players, your one-on-one coaching is massive now. Your ability to adapt to what you see in terms of, can someone else help get across to stop a marquee player like Luke Loughlin? But then also what we have is the new 2-point arc. Who are our key threats? So knowing who you're marking, know the key men are, knowing who you're marking, knowing what foot they kick on, knowing who your 2-point threats. There's so much now that you need to take in, you need to develop and coach during the week. I seen the same ourselves with Carlo last weekend. The form of Mikey Bambrick was absolutely off the charts. The pace, the power that he plays with, that needed to be shut down. And the same token, then they had a midfielder in Conor Doyle who was hitting 2 points for fun. So there's a balance that you need to strike in terms of stopping the likes of Mikey Bambrick, getting help to help whoever is detailed that job, but then not switching off if the ball goes back out, that you're giving away these 2-point efforts as well, because very quickly a game can run away from you. And game's just kicking off, fairly clear what Laois are trying to do in terms of shutting down Luke Loughlin. But as the clips roll on here, 2 players in particular who absolutely went to town and exploited everything was Ronan Wallace, Sam McCartan, and even in Joe Moran. 1-14 from the half-back line, they ended up kicking here. So we'd see there's a closed attack here. Ball goes to the wing to Sam McCartan. And if we look at the top right-hand corner, you'll see Luke Loughlin's marker. Luke Loughlin has just gone off. This is the previous player where he took a knock at the sideline. He's off. He's on the sideline. But instead of dropping across, create a +1 or push someone else out, Sam McCartan skips in a one-on-one situation. Another man in absolutely unbelievable form. But to me, that focus was still on Luke Loughlin. He's not even in the play. Westmeath or at least actually have an extra defender, but he's worried about someone who's not on the field, and that's what happens. This is different now. You see Loughlin picks up the ball, dinks it in to Stephen Smith, leading out, great run, but 3 Laois defenders all get caught then running after Luke Loughlin. And this is literally 2 minutes later in the game. play rolls on, Sam McCartan straight in front of the goals, 2 points. That's 4 points basically in 2 minutes, where the focus had completely gone to him. Same thing, Loughlin's just outside the 20 or the 45-meter lane here. You had 3 or 4 players all still looking at him and worrying about what he's going to do. But Ronan Wallace, just like Sam McCartan, he realizes there's going to be time and space for me. And it's just a simple one-on-one step and ball goes over the bar. And this one again is no different. You'll see Laois actually are in a good defensive position here with enough players facing the ball. But just as they skip inside the 45-meter lane, again, all we see is 3-4 Laois players still watching outside the arc to see what Luke Loughlin is going to do, and McCartan and Wallace make hay. This is the final we're going to look at, just coming up to half time. Same thing, 3 or 4 Laois players all taking their attention towards Luke Loughlin on the right hand side. Nice wee backdoor cut, and there we have Ronan Wallace straight in, Pam in goal, 2-12, 7 points, half time, game absolutely over. So it is really difficult to try and adapt to it in game. But to me, as much as just McNulty or Rossman and the Laois boys will be really annoyed if you look back at stuff like that, because some of it could have been avoided. It's the awareness of Sam McCartan, of Ronan Wallace in particular, to realise
two sides to it.
Exactly. Luke's been clamped down on here today, but that creates space and that creates opportunities for them, and they exploited them. So like I said, from their half-back line, we're all looking to see what did Luke Loughlin score. He scored 1-2. But half-back line to score 1 goal and 14 points is absolutely incredible. And it leaves them now going into this weekend's game with Wicklow. If you're Oshie McConville, you're sitting and wondering, well, where is the danger coming from? This is it's the new game. There's so many different sort of permutations that can happen in a game, but I have to say, you're going to concede, but I enjoy the aspect of where you're trying to summarize all these small different parts and then coach them live and training during the week to make sure that your players are ready. And it's not a case of like one person will get that man marking job, and that realistically is his job, but everyone else has a job and a half to do. And I think that's where Laois come up short in that regard. But as you mentioned, the other side of it was the Westmeath players' awareness of it. And then obviously the ability to go and do what they did, stepping men, taking scores. I just thought it was really, really impressive, because that should have been a really close game. But particularly with the Westmeath half-back line, they made sure that game actually wasn't close at all and was put to bed by half-time.
And it would have been, 10, 12 minutes in, Laois are happy enough with what's gone on. It's maybe, I think it might have been 4-3 at the time, and they're getting the joy with how the detail on Luke Loughlin is going. But whether it's from the sideline or whether it's from the players themselves, just that little switch that came into it, and those other options just coming on, and that's what blew it open, like you pointed out. And I credit to Luke Loughlin in that instance. Like it's a tough ask, but he didn't shirk from it at all. Like he still tried to do everything he would normally do, and that's what really drew in the cover on him to 100%. Let the other lads get in and score. He didn't just back off and play a different game. He tried to play the same game, and that's what just freed it up for the rest of the guys to go to town on it. And
so what you're saying is he took it on to a point, and then he realizes that's not on, but let's move it quickly to give whoever the balls recycled to that one-on-one opportunity to drift it. Now, there was times drift defence was on for Laois, and for whatever reason, whether the focus, they didn't engage. But yeah, you're right. He still tried to do what he normally did. But as soon as he realised that wasn't on, he moved the ball really quickly and shifted the point of attack, that there was always space and time for those one-on-ones.
Yeah, no frustration. He seemed to come in on his play. Like I'm thinking of the clip he showed where he's maybe 60 yards out. He kicks the ball in. And 2 or 3 seconds later, you see him making that run, breaking through the arc. And the 3 or 4 lads went with him. But if he was feeling sorry for himself, he doesn't make that run. If he feels that I'm being bottled up, it's not happening for me to here today. He just kicks that ball in, and he mightn't follow it up. And then the space isn't created. But he kind of stuck to his plan for the team, and that's what was the key to it, in my mind.
Yeah. So it was a selfless performance from him in terms of still.
Yeah.
he needs to hold on to the ball enough to draw those people into him, and then he needs to move it quick enough that he still offers up the one-on-ones. So absolutely brilliant performance for them, and they're really sort of cranking it up. The week before, they had been clipped by 1 point by Limerick, which put them into that preliminary quarter-final that it looked like they were going to avoid, but it certainly looks like, even though you probably would assume that it was going to be a sticky enough game for them. They made short work of Laois, and they're going into the game against Wicklow full of confidence this weekend. I'm not sure where we'll go next weekend. We'll have probably plenty of action in terms of we have Roscommon and Cork live on GA+. We have the big one between Armagh, Galway, and then there's obviously the 2 Tailteann Cup games on Sunday. So between them all, we'll see how the form is Monday. We'll get studying and see what we can dig out, and we'll be back next week for another episode in detail.